G'day legends, I hope you're all fantastic and I hope you've had a good week. It is time for another installment of Friday Q&A, number 199 if you can believe it. So if you've got a question for Q&A 200, put it in the comments section below. If you like what I'm doing here on the channel, check the video description. There's a bunch of different ways you can support what I'm doing. And I do want to mention straight up as well that we lost the Guitar Hero's guitar hero this week, Jeff Beck. Jeff was a major influence for me, especially the album Blow by Blow. They had an incredible career, basically the dream career if you're a guitar player, where it lasted, since the mid-60s until now. So basically 6 decades, held up by their peers as an absolute legend and an icon, incredibly relevant across different genres. They collaborated with a wide variety of different musicians. You know, Jeff was just kind of what the guitar would sound like if the guitar could play guitar, in my opinion. So it was sad to hear that news, but it's kind of been lovely to see so many people celebrating Jeff's work as a guitar player. So let me know your favorite Jeff Beck song in the comments section below. And until then, we will get into some questions. Pick the mood up a little bit and I'll talk about my favorite Rush solos. I'm going to pick 3 of them for all of you because I was asked about my favorite guitar solos of all time a couple of weeks ago and I forgot to mention Limelight. That is one of my favorite solos, absolutely in the top 10, so expressive, fits in the song so well, has that epic ending, and hearing the way Alex was able to keep that note kind of ringing out and sustaining live is such a cool trick. So Limelight definitely goes in there. I'm going to go for one of the 80s era Rush songs next, and that would be the solo in Between the Wheels, another one of my absolute favorite Rush albums and Rush songs. I just love the way Alex kind of uses the whammy bar and uses all the really sweet notes on the guitar as well as their tone in that song, and that album in general, it's greasy goodness. So Between the Wheels, and then probably the solo in La Villa or La Via Strangiato, because yeah, that was when I first heard about Rush. Someone handed me a Rush album and said, you gotta check out La Via Strangiato. It's amazing. Alex is awesome. Alex is a guitar god, and I was pretty much hooked from there. So they're my 3 favorite Rush solos. A bunch more that I'm definitely missing out. So let me know your favorites in the comments. Any plans for a solo project? Not really. I'm pretty busy between gigging, doing ragdoll stuff, and teaching and doing YouTube. It is something that I want to do at some point. It will probably be a pretty eclectic kind of thing. Lots of stuff that I like, from super intense metal stuff to synthwave to acoustic guitar. So a lot of the little noodly ideas and demo tracks that you hear on the channel, I'm sure could be kind of upscaled into full songs. So that would make a pretty fun project in my opinion. It's just kind of one, really wanting to do it, which at the moment, I don't really feel that massive drive to do it. If that comes, I'm sure you'll hear the album. And 2, it's actually just kind of feel. And 2, it's less about finding the time and more about making the time to do it. So those factors together, who knows? It's going to be exciting going forward no matter what. Would it be awesome to see Tom Schultz revive the Rockman? Maybe. I feel like if you just released a Rockman reissue, it would kind of fall into the same bucket as a lot of pedal reissues or vintage gear that gets reissued, where 50% of the audience says this doesn't sound like the original, why is this being made? And another 50% of the audience simply just doesn't really get the motivation. The great thing about the Rockman was it was a solution to an existing problem, and it solved it pretty well, and it ended up being used on a bunch of iconic records. That problem of like direct recorded guitar tones, now we have an entire ecosystem around that stuff, like the Fractal and the Line 6, Quad Cortex, Kemper, plugins, all those kind of things sound so incredibly realistic now that I think the people who get excited about it, which I'd probably be one of them, it would be more for a nostalgia factor than anything super functional. Have I tried an ESP Viper? I've played a few ESPs, a few LTDs. I've played some that play really, really nice and sound great. Aesthetically, they're not really my thing. I'm not the biggest fan of SG shapes in the first place, and then that kind of looks like an SG if you put some beer goggles onto me. And apologies to all the Viper fans out there, because I know they have a bit of a cult following. But yeah, they've never really been my favorite guitar shape. but ESP make amazing guitars, and I've been lucky enough to play some that sound fantastic. What to do if you find your pick sliding out of position when you're playing the guitar? This is definitely a problem that I've had for numerous reasons. The first one is a technique issue where I'm either not holding the pick hard enough, or I'm actually trying to hold it too hard and I'm sweating and the sweat is getting on the pick and kind of letting it slip. I use these, what are these, Tortex Jazz 3s. These are the least slippy pick that I've been able to find that I like playing with. I used to get the red Jazz 3s that, you know, everyone loves because of Eric Johnson, and I would scuff those up and use like kind of a little nail file and just rough them up, kind of make them feel like skateboard grip tape or something like that. You can even get the grippy Jazz 3s now. So I would say part of it comes down to technique. And for me, the way I kind of hold my pick and the way I teach my students to hold their pick is, you know, your thumb kind of goes back here, but it's not about holding the pick like this with the fleshy part of your finger. It's more about using the side. And I find I get less sweat on the side and I'm able to hold onto the pick. And I actually don't hold it that tight. So there's like less force around it. There's no forces to make it slip. So a few little things to think about there regarding pick technique. You all know I love the PRS 245. What are my thoughts on the 245 versus the Tremonti? I've played a few different Tremontis, and like anything PRS, they're exquisite instruments. The comparison, I've never really had a chance to do the comparison side by side, but I played a bunch of different PRS guitars when I bought my 245, and that particular 245 was the one that I liked the most. They all sounded a little bit different. They all had different strengths and weaknesses. I just went with mine because it was the one where I went, oh, that's what I'm looking for in a guitar. And I think you get that individual variation between guitars a lot. PRS are probably more consistent than some other brands with that. But the specs on the Tremonti, the different pickups, I know some people absolutely swear by them. And seeing Alter Bridge live, Mark sounded incredible with that guitar through his rig. My thoughts on 440 versus 432 hertz tuning. This is like one of these internet spicy opinions, isn't it? Depends what you want to know my thoughts on it. I'm pretty much in the camp where if you want to use 432 hertz as a reference tone for A, go for it if it makes you happy. If you think it's going to make you a healthier, more complete musician who writes better music, I don't think the reference tone that you use for an A note is going to fix your crappy music. So there's a whole lot of stuff about 432 hertz, which is absolute bullshit, like so many other things with music and life in general. But I just kind of see it as an arbitrary choice. You know, if it turns you on to use 432 hertz, go for it. Playing in a band with people who have children and a family and their motivations changing around that, is that something I've got experience with, and what are my thoughts on it? Definitely. Ryan, our singer and bass player, has a family, has lots of kids, and I've known Ryan since about 2008 now, and they are a very different person from when I met them. We always kind of laugh in the band where when we were introduced to Ryan, we were like 19. Ryan's 5 years older than me, so mid-20s, and he was married, and we were like, oh, we could never be in a band with a married guy. And around the time we actually started the band, Ryan had their first kid. And a thing that I've noticed with that is it just kind of makes you figure out priorities in life. And when you're 19 and you want to take over the world and play in the best band in the world, that's something that a lot of people feel. I certainly felt that. But you quickly realize that playing music with people, it's less about the music and it's more about the people, and it's about taking care of the people, and it's about leaving space for the people you play music with to also have a life outside of it. I say it all the time, you know, music is something that should be a part of your life and should be integrated into it, but it shouldn't just be the only thing you're obsessed with, because you're missing out on so many great things. So of course people's motivation is going to change when they have children. Most people have a family and have kids, and that becomes the most important thing in the world to them, with good reason. I think our entire society is structured around the idea of family, and family is certainly very important to me. The hardest thing I think most people will say is if you don't have kids, it's understanding that fact that people's motivations do change, and it's as much a learning experience for the people who have the kids or have the family commitments that they have to uptake as it is everybody else who maybe isn't at that point in their life or chooses not to. It's all about figuring out how to make use of the time that you do have available. And I think we've been incredibly fortunate to do the things that we've been able to do and make that work. But those motivations are totally different for everybody. I don't want to speak for Ryan, certainly. I'm just kind of making some observations here. And now for me, being in my mid-30s, most of my friends have kids. They've made that choice to go and have kids, and their lifestyle does rapidly change. And most people will tell you it puts a lot of things into perspective. And I think that's just the main thing, isn't it? It's perspective on life, on music. That's part of being human, part of getting older, part of hopefully getting a little bit wiser. So anyway, they're my thoughts on all of that. That is all for this week's Q&A. Hope you all have a fantastic week. Go and make some music this weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Be good to one another, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.